We are live. So welcome everyone back to the Think Tank Live. I think we're upgrading how America chooses its leaders, so you can finally vote for you. Here's the problem: the system isn't broken; it's rigged. Money and party insiders decide who get to vote before you ever even see a ballot. Right now, there's no shared place where citizens can see through the spin, find candidates who actually represent them, and coordinate around something better. So that's what we're building. We call it digital politics, a new lens that cuts through left versus right and asks a simpler question, up versus down. Does this leader serve power, or do they serve you? The goal is simple: better choices, your choices, one fair system where every candidate can be seen and every citizen can be heard. If you're new here, follow the show so you don't miss what's coming. And if you want to be part of what we're building, join the Digital Politics Hub at hub.futureis.org to become a citizen architect. All right, let's plug in.
Awesome. Yeah, welcome to those tuning in. We recently had a great, I guess, Ask Me Anything, kind of an open door meeting with VoteNevada. A, thank you so much to those who were able to come to that. And B, what a great conversation, Travis, that we had. And we're going to go deeper today into some of the highlights of that conversation. And the first one is, gosh, America has tried to throw in better candidates. They have tried to throw more money in. They have tried to put a new party or reform movements into the dough, right? That is democracy. But over and over again, we keep hitting the same walls, right? Money influences outcomes rather than people. Party control gives us decisions that we have some fake vision that we have control over our own decisions, and media gatekeeping, telling us what is and is not electable in our system. So this is also building off of last week's citizen architect discussion. So Travis, let's orient the people a bit into kind of what the conversation was about, how have been thrown against the wall, better candidates, new parties, and reform movements all try their darndest to fix the system, but why the system isn't reactive to those changes and what we can actually do about it.
Yeah, sure. So in a nutshell, it's kind of designed that way. It's designed for a lack of change and more for keeping the status quo. But really, at the core of it all, it's like the bottom line is gatekeeping. That the party leaders control the whole process. Before you even start casting, before you even know who's going to be on the primary, they pretty much know who they're running on in each position, and they don't want change. They don't want anything that's going to drive up competition, that's going to add transparency, that's going to make them actually earn your vote, rather than be entitled to it. That, oh well, you're a Democrat, you're going to have to vote for me because you're a Democrat. So we have to always keep that in mind, that those that are in power and have been in power for decades keep moving it in that direction. They want it to stay that way. They want more money in politics. They want less democracy, really. And the hardest for a lot of voters to understand is that both sides are doing that. And it's the leaders. It's not necessarily the voters that are the bad guys. But the leaders are playing the political game, and it's a very unfair system, and it's unfair. And they just, both sides are rigging it in their own favor, and citizens are always the ones to lose. Yeah, I guess that's a good starting point.
Yeah, I love what you just said there, Travis, that citizens are always the ones that lose, and they're the ones that always show up to vote. They always donate their $5. They always do the right thing. And a great point from the VoteNevada meeting we had. Doesn't matter, the desire or the grassroots efforts. if the system, like you said, is not built to allow those to thrive and grow, well, gosh, you know, look outside, turn on the news. Nobody's happy with the way politics is working, and yet we have, you know, outsider candidates. We have all these political parties. We have all these reform movements. So can we go deeper into really it's the system, right? It is the civics of democracy that needs to change, and why it's not just about good candidates and good reform movements and another party that has ideals? Why is it the actual structure of democracy that we're both VoteNevada as well as FiNC are talking about?
Yeah, so uh, going into the fact that the those that are already in power are the ones controlling how elections run, and it's kind of that's how it's always been, but it just always slowly inching towards worse, and now we're just at such a horribly pivotal moment where like we have to make a change. And so like we talked about with Vote Nevada is we need systemic change. We've tried getting better candidates, we've tried newer ideas, and there are really great new candidates, there are really great new ideas, but the system itself are not going to allow those ideas to take root. And that's the key distinction here. And even great candidates, like like I wouldn't know how to calculate the exact percentage, but let's say that a very small percentage is like millions of great candidates try to get into the system, and a small percentage do end up winning. But it's like a fraction of those that run. We're lucky enough that they try every year again and again. Even like third parties have been trying for decades, and maybe here and there they might have a statewide or local win, but they still try, and they still have there's some benefit to what they're doing. But long story short, it's really that the system keeps them out. The system decides, again, right before primary even begins, it's pretty much like the gatekeepers decide who they want to win, and then immediately that person's going to have more corporate backing, super PAC backing, all the usual special interests and people that the party is connected to. They're going to say, hey, they're going to make the calls, hey, support this person before you even know who's on the ballot, before voters have any input on who they like. They're already putting the thumb on the scale, and so that person's going to have financial advantages, support from all these different powerful people that are very influential in society, and not influential in like a grassroots, like people trust them. It's more of influences in the power and the money to again put the thumb on the scale. So it's that, and then it's just the parties in general are going to pressure even the others in that party, that the other elected officials to start weighing in towards that one person. And then the media is going to do that too, because then part of these connections, part of this special interest stuff is going to be pulling in the media that, hey, give this guy, get him on your news, put him on the put him as a headliner, this is the guy that's going to win the party, or like, so like it's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy that they force, like, oh, this is the front runner, this is the guy that everyone's going to want. It's like, no, you want him, so you're saying that everyone wants him, and you're causing a manipulation there. So that's a big piece to like, so the system is in almost entirely in control of those already in power, and that's just not democracy. We need it to be in the citizens' hands. So that's the solution that we're going towards right now with what we're building, is building new civic infrastructure that's truly owned by the people, citizen owned, citizen controlled. As those that already know what we're working on, phase one, before we even get to phase two of building this new digital civic infrastructure, phase one is all about just making sure we have enough citizens involved, we have different perspectives that know what we're doing, we have the oversight that's needed. Even we're building out the legal structure that every citizen can become a future owner of the technology. So by the time we roll this out, it's not FiNC doesn't own it, big tech doesn't own it, party gatekeepers don't own it. No, citizens actually will be owning this so that it can't get taken over by anyone. And so this is the only way we're actually going to see fundamental change, is a new system. And the beauty of it is, like, we're not pushing the new ideas aside. We're not pushing the newer candidates, the better candidates that people already like. We're not pushing them aside. We want to build infrastructure that we can share with them, that we can help amplify those new ideas, amplify those better candidates. We're not going to run the candidates ourselves. That's for America to decide who they want to run. We're just going to build a system that has an actual level playing field and actually can prop up the right people based on what Americans want and not what the party gatekeepers want.
And to go along with that, I think all of us, know somebody, or you live next to someone who has tried to run for something, right? Or you voted for someone, and gosh, I talked to my friends and family, and they all like that person. We all voted, but they lost, or they didn't make it to the primary. So what we're talking about is identifying those dams in the river that stop quality, merit-based candidates and reform movements from ever gaining traction, as well as allowing those dams to be named and almost shamed, right? That's not how democracy works. While also providing the system, putting it in the hands of the people, right? This isn't FiNC's product. It is something, and if you were here last week, it's all about building this with America, building this with the civic architects. You guys are on the ground. You know who the good quality candidates are. You know who the reform movements are, the trusted voices that deserve to be amplified. And so that, we're really putting citizens back in the driver's seat of this opportunity to envision and build a democracy that is no longer bullshit, really, and actually serves the people. Yeah, Travis, can you just end this segment with a little bit of why it is so vital to FiNC's mission to build it with America? Because I think, so many people are so excited about the technology and the efforts that we have in the future, but they almost miss the opportunity and the needed space that we're building for regular folks who have, quality ideas and quality things to say, but just don't have the space beyond, the argument section of any given social media to really build that and see it to fruition. So why do we need the public? And what, beyond needing the public, why is that putting it in the hands of the people and so different from the rigged system?
Yeah, sure. So, yeah, to your point, like, a lot of people get excited by the technology, but I remind them too that there's been tens of efforts to make some kind of a political social network, and most people don't know they exist, and they don't exist anymore. There might be one or two that recently have tried and are on their way out or whatever, but many have tried and failed to do a platform, and the key is buy-in. And really the execution, how this comes to fruition, is key to whether it'll work or not. And again, the phase two, the end game is digital democracy. And some of you may have heard that term before in other places. It's not a concept we invented in particular. Yes, our vision of it is pretty well thought out, like very well thought out, and a lot of different intricacies, but the point is that people already have this idea. Like, of course, we're in a tech future, and I've been saying this a lot lately. You can get a rating on what your cheeseburger would taste like. You get a rating of like the Uber driver that brings that cheeseburger to you, but you can't get good ratings on like your politician that you might vote for.
That's so funny, Travis. It's such a great example. I love that you said that.
But so a lot of the tech side is kind of more of almost an obvious progression of how everything else in society progressed, why it didn't politics. um but again, the execution is essential, because think about this, like, even if we create this really great platform, you could put your zip code in, show all your candidates side by side, and you could do a clear comparison between candidates. But imagine big tech ends up buying that out, and then what are they going to do to it? They're going to go right away to say, okay, well, if a politician gives us more money, we're going to prop them up higher, and we're going to do this. We're going to make the algorithms different, and with journalists that are on our platform, you have to pay more, and we're going to make you seem more legitimate just because you gave us more money. And so that can't happen. If that happens, it's just an evolution of the broken system. We don't want an evolution of the broken system. We want a new system that citizens are in control of. So that's a core piece. We don't want big tech to own it. We don't want the party gatekeepers to own it, not FiNC to own it. Like, it has to be the citizens. It has to be democratically ran and controlled, or this does not make a difference. This does not do the change that's needed in society. So that's a big piece to it. And then beyond that, it just the width of what we're talking about of this, like, there's some key features that we want to create, like politician report cards and a matchmaker to find your best match of who you should vote for based on the issues that you care about. But for this to really be the future digital home for American politics, there's so many pieces to this that need to be built out, and it's something that, like, FiNC alone can't build. It's something that no one organization can build. This is going to involve, like, thousands of people in focus groups, polling, doing surveys, multiple organizations building civic technologies, some that already exist today that would be, like, integrated into this system. Others will be coming from scratch. And, like, we need researchers, people from, like, civic engineers and civic specialists, and to political specialists, economists, sorry. So we need, like, academically smart people. We need people that are, like, just everyday people of different demographics. We just need all different perspectives to build the most robust system that really encompasses all perspectives, gives everyone a voice at the table, allows true fairness to set in. These algorithms can't be about making the most money. It has to be like, how could the algorithms be built that's the most democratic, the most fair, allows everyone to be able to give their feedback, but then ultimately has to go towards a consensus. Whatever most people want is going to eventually rise more to the top, and the things that most people don't want is going to slowly go towards the bottom. But it has to have each idea, each candidate needs at least an opportunity to prove, am I the right candidate, and is this the right idea, before it goes down. So we just need so many different perspectives, so many different layers. This is not an easy fix that we just build something quick and just hand it to the public. There's certain, like, initial features that we want to launch, but this is going to be a forever evolving system of, like, ongoing new features, new ways to do things. Virtual town halls, Q&A system, quickly be able to ask questions to different candidates. Some kind of an AI consultant thing that can help answer questions for citizens. Just so many different features that need to be encompassed on this, and at the same time have the right guardrails so it doesn't become unfair, doesn't sway towards money, it doesn't sway towards someone that can, like, have undue influence over how this works. We need to ensure that can't happen. And then the last thing part of this is buy-in. The key, another part of why all the other places have failed is about buy-in. That if you, because I should say buy-in and trust. Like, in order to ensure that people are going to trust this, because people are weary of technology right now. Rightfully so, which how, like, big tech can be and stuff like that. But So by saying like, hey, we're not just rushing into this, we want America to tell us what they think, where do the lines go, like, can we do, if we use some AI but it's not making decisions, it's just building consensuses, is that okay? Should there be very little AI? Should it just be almost all algorithms for a while until AI is more trustworthy? So a lot of different moral questions, how the algorithms should work. Even yesterday when I was in a podcast, as a guest, the guy was talking about, it's called smurfing, where it's like a way to pretend you're taking small dollar donations as a politician when it's really like large chunks of money, but it just distributed you into like small pieces. And so I didn't know how big of a deal that was until yesterday. And so like that's going to be something we have to incorporate in the development of, like, ensuring we know how the system's going to try to manipulate the results, and then get above that, so that we're always one step ahead of those trying to make themselves look good, and bypassing the transparency that's deserved for the citizens.
That's so crazy. Just these new ways that BS is happening behind the scenes and we don't even know it. But Travis, I'm going to reset the room. But what you ended on about buy-in and trust is exactly what we're about to get into. And I'm so excited. So, quick reset. If you are just tuning in, FiNC is building the civic infrastructure to upgrade how America chooses its leaders, cutting through left versus right. And we're asking a simpler question: does this leader serve power, or do they serve you? And if this is hitting home, let us know. Drop a comment, share the live, and join us at hub.futureis.org. And I will put that on the screen in a second. So let's plug back into the conversation, Travis. So for this section, a big thing that we were hearing in the Vote Nevada AMA was a fear of, that's nice that you want my opinion. That's nice that you want me to be included in this building of civic infrastructure, but will my voice actually matter? So some things that I think are leading into that: people, they vote and that person doesn't win. They take surveys and no one cares after, what the results are. Or, where politics are being talked about is just a bloodbath of opinions and nobody walks away happier or their minds changed. So can you address that fear that people have of, I hear FiNC wants my opinion, but why are they different? Why is that any different than this, dead end participation that has kind of flooded politics today?
Yeah, so a lot of it is towards what we're calling consensus technology. So it's really like, all humans are biased. We're all biased. We could always, like, the best we could do as humans is strive to be as little biased or be aware of our biases. But we all have them. So it's just being about aware of them and getting around them, and having others balance you out and stuff like that. But the beauty with technology is that if we could build certain things together, the tech doesn't necessarily have to have the same type of biases that we do. Like the tech might have its own kind of bias with like emotions and stuff, but you can program in like pretty good objectivity. And then you'd always keep evolving and assessing it. If you see any kind of a bias, you keep improving it. But so long story short on that is like, imagine, right now there could be like people could be on Reddit, and like somebody could ask a question: what do you guys think of XYZ? And then like thousands of people are going to be messaging in that thread, and like, yeah, you're going to skim through some of them. If you're interested in the answer, you're going to skim through some certain questions, but you're not going to read all of them. You're not going to tally how many people said what. That's also why surveys come, because then there's a clear black and white A, B, or C multiple choice. But with consensus technology, there could be 10,000 people giving their feedback. And, this could be AI, or even just algorithms can, look through the feedback and really kind of consolidate, like out of the 10,000 comments, 1,000 people generally were concerned about this, and a lot of people were saying this, and 200 people actually thought they were the only one that said something else, but it actually turns out that there are a lot of people saying this certain thing. So the idea is that, allow people to be as free as they want of giving, like as many people want to give their feedback, but then actually making it have weight towards something. If you're just on Reddit, like let's say this is like a campaign, a politician's campaign, and they did a Reddit post. They wanted to know what constituents want it. Again, like a survey, then they could bring it up to their campaign, like, oh, this is how many people said A and B and C. But then again, they're not going to read the 10,000 posts. They might skim a couple, might pull some that they felt intuitively that was worth like bringing up to the rest of their team. But again, most people's like feedback is going completely unread and basically thrown out. But with this technology, you can ensure there's at least some weight. So even if a human didn't necessarily read your exact word for word thing, it's still going to bring weight. So you might even have one thing to say, but like it's going to balance the emotions you're feeling is going to bring some weight towards decisions, and like the facts you're saying that should happen is going to have some kind of weight. Like the system's going to pull as much feedback as it can to build a consensus around like how many people felt this, how many people said that, how many people want this. And so that can be a really powerful tool. It's like, it's almost like voting, but instead of like A, B, or C, it's like voting in a very complex way by using your open language and then pulling as much, commonness between different people and what different people are saying in these different pieces. So that's part of how you guarantee it, that your voice at least to some degree is adding some weight to something that's being calculated. So your voice, what you said, is going to have some kind of a weight.
Yeah, and something that we talk about at FiNC often is the need to standardize fairness. And that goes back to the civic infrastructure, how it's not just, oh gosh, a million people have an opinion on this. I guess I'm seeing that the top 50 want choice A. So therefore, I'm overwhelmed and do choice A. So can we go into why standardizing fairness not only is a needed component of upgrading democracy, but really ensures that people who are currently underrepresented, not heard, and just not a part of the voices of democracy today actually get a seat at the table?
Yeah, so so the one thing is like this consensus technology, but then in general, like the way we're building this platform, it's like social media at its core has a very democratic context, like the way it's supposed to be set up initially, like in the way of like the more likes a post has, the more it's going to raise up in the algorithms, and like the more people like something, the more it's going to go up. So the problem though with regular social media is then money then changes that. Most people could like B, but if more money is being paid on A is going to go up higher. So that's the deal breaker. But if you take that fundamental concept and plug it into a political platform, that so that it works, that so if there's different, so imagine if candidates worked like those posts, that like if there's 200 people running in the presidency, and it's still 2 years away, but if 200 people are putting their hand in the race, like already there'll be people can thumbs up and thumbs down some of these people, start showing some preliminary, like are some of them gaining traction, do people like some of these people. And again, it's ultimately like, instead of saying, like right now it's like the party leaders decide, all right, we want this guy to win, so we're going to shove it down everyone's throat and see if they'll swallow it. It's basically it. And then sometimes they don't. I mean, that's their big test, is like, all right, we have three guys that we really like, that we approve, we're going to shove all three down their throat and then see which one they'll actually swallow, and that's the guy we're going to say is the key winner. So instead, the way this works is they're not involved. The gatekeepers do not get to have any input in how this unfolds. This is all about the citizens. So as soon as you're like, I want to see how many people are running for my state senate, or how many people are running for the presidency in 2 years, or how many whatever, and you'll see live real-time results of like who's running now, what kind of grassroots growth are they having? Are they getting a lot of likes? Are they getting comments? Are they doing a lot of town halls? Are people coming to their town halls? Are they answering a lot of questions? How are their engagement? Another thing we've been explaining it a lot lately is like it's in a lot of ways it's kind of like the way influencers work these days. Like we kind of want politicians to learn from influencers on, influencers engage the average person. It's like different from like the olden day celebrity to an influencer. An olden day celebrity is like, top down, they were chosen to be an actor or whatever, but they became famous after gaining the establishment backing, or somebody that's already in power chose them to be a celebrity. Where influencers grew more organically, and like, yeah, there's a lot of them that it's like just a superficial context, but not always. And there's all sorts of influencers, but pretty much all of them, they grow by giving America what they want and then gaining popularity one follower at a time, gaining the likes, gaining the follows, engaging people, at responding to comments. That's all the same stuff that really politicians should be doing too. They should be engaging their citizens. They should not be hiding in a box and then like, not, the only time you see them is on a commercial, and like it's a paid commercial, usually it's an attack ad of the other person, not even like pro them. So, all this, so the whole system is about, every citizen having one vote. It's the same as like, you can't give 2 likes to a post. You can either not give a like, or you could give 1 like, or maybe a down. You could do a thumbs down, thumbs up, or nothing. You can't give 2 likes. So that's, that's more democratic, and no one can buy more likes in this system. So that's what makes it ensured that the people have the voice. So, whether it's you or some billionaire, you or Elon Musk, he can only give 1 thumbs up to that candidate. You can only give 1 thumb up to that candidate. And the funny thing is that the establishment, the concentration of power, is a fraction of 1% of the population. So they don't have a lot of thumbs ups that they can even give. When it's money, they have all the money. So if they could buy thumbs up, they're going to win every time, which is basically where we live today. But in this system, no, the Biden and Trump can give 1 thumb up or 1 thumb down. They can't give more than that. And everyone across the board of people in power, money, all that stuff, they get one hand, 1 vote, you get 1 vote.
Yeah, and that makes me so excited for this third segment we're about to get into. So let me reset the room real quick. Quick reset of the room. If you guys are tuning in, FiNC is building the civic infrastructure to upgrade how America chooses its leaders, cutting through the left versus right rhetoric to ask a simpler question. Does this leader serve power, or do they serve me? And if this hits home, drop a comment, hit like, share the live, and join us at hub.futureis.org. Okay, let's plug back into the conversation. So Travis, what you were just talking about, and I made some notes. I just wanted to get your, pick your brain a bit about the note I took. So, and I've never put this together myself. Currently, the current system is run by gatekeepers, right? Big money, big tech, those, political elites. We are saying this civic infrastructure that is being built with America by FiNC, the citizen architects almost become the gatekeepers against the rigged patterns, right? And as we were talking about influencers, as opposed to a traditional celebrity, like you said, are at the mercy of the people. If you are found out to lie about whatever you're promoting, or you're being found to not like it, but getting big money for it, right? That is an immediate turnaround in the digital age of public opinion. So I just wanted to pick your brain about that those thoughts that came to me of citizen architects replacing gatekeepers to protect the system, and then making politicians or even reform movements, like you said, uh, like influencers, but how that could, in real time, affect the merits of someone, as opposed to the old system that had lag, I would say, to public opinion.
Yeah, 100%. Like I wouldn't want to call it gatekeeping. It's more of like watchdogs to make the citizens would ensure the integrity of what we're building, so that nobody can have undue influence. But technically, you're right. It's the same kind of concept, just for a moral good instead of a moral bad. Um, but yeah, so yeah, to your point, like influencers, independent media, independent journalists, podcasters, they are held, the word's really accountability, they're held more accountable to the public in a way that the other ways don't. A celebrity, like a celebrity can do a little faux pas here and there, and citizens can be mad, but like, as long as the numbers are up and they're gonna putting them in that movie is gonna make a lot of money, nothing's gonna touch them. But an influencer, if you're not gonna follow them anymore, they lose everything they're about. Their entire fame collapses immediately and directly to the amount of to how much people support them. Um, this is also part of why, like younger people are moving away from establishment media and into the podcasting and independent journalists, is because podcasters and journalists, they're authentic. They're trying to give you the right answers. Not that everyone's perfect. There's plenty that are bad actors, I guess, but they're more accountable to the people. It's more transparent. They feel more real. They're not polished and scripted and like robotic, like kind of how we see the TV media these days. um but like, but they are held accountable. Like, as an independent journalist or a podcaster, they need your following, they need your trust. If they don't have your trust, you're not going to watch them anymore, and if you don't watch them anymore, that's their career in the toilet. So the same with, like, if this is now the new way for politicians to rise, is that they have to engage the citizens, they have to do well by the citizens, build the trust with the people, and that keeps them rising. Like, that would be wonderful. And then, like, like, for example, if Congress has to make a voting decision, imagine they actually turn to you and say, hey, my district on digital democracy, this is what they're asking me. They want me to vote yes on blah, blah, blah. What do you guys think? Here's a poll. Also, I want to hear your feedback, comment, tell me what you actually want. Like, can you imagine if we could actually talk to politicians that way? The way we could, like, comment and send messages to influencers and podcasters and journalists. Like, that's a more direct democracy. That is a democracy in the digital age. That would be incredible. And, like, right now, the way it works is, like, the career politician, they're not even pretending to ask you what your opinion is. They're going to the special donors, they're dial for dollars, they're $10,000 plate dinners, and that's who they're asking what they think about the vote. Should I vote for this? Is when, after you gave them $10,000 to have a dinner with them, then they'll ask you, what you think of if they should vote yes or no. But and that's why it's not democracy anymore. So this new way to do it, the way the digital age does it, again, like an Uber driver, if an Uber driver is rude or always late and stuff like that, they're going to get lower and lower ratings and eventually cut out of Uber. Like, that's a pretty cool way to do things. Maybe it's not perfect, but it's so much better than, like, oh, only if those at the top notice you're doing bad, or it gets to a point where their profits are hurting them, then they kick you out of their company. No, let the people decide. Like, that's a much more fair system. So that's exactly what we're talking about here.
Yeah, and I love that you brought back the word direct democracy. I feel like that's something we haven't talked about in a while, and that's so true. And talking about Uber, it's more than, if the CEO at Uber said, "Oh, I like, this driver to go into this neighborhood," and pick up these people, that has nothing to do with the needs and the wants of the citizens of that neighborhood. I know as a woman, I look at Lyft or Uber drivers and how they're rated to base on, do other women feel weird around this driver? It, so, and race, religion, gender, there's different aspects to being heard by the person providing a service. And that's what a politician does. They provide the service of democracy, I suppose. So where is that direct ability, direct democracy to say, hey, I hate that you voted on this thing. You promised you wouldn't. Gosh darn it. Because right now, that gosh darn it feeling doesn't make it to the politician because they don't need your vote. Like Travis said, they need that $10,000 dinner plates and just a phone call. And they got their job for the next, gosh, with the way things are, 20, 30 years. So I'm not trying to say, it's a direct relation to Uber, but that is such a great example, Travis, of the people using the service are the ones that should be rating the quality of that service and should have a way to voice their opinion on it. And that is just nowhere. I know I haven't been to a town hall meeting in how long? And if you try to call your politician, you might get their intern, but you don't get a phone call back. And so that is just such a great way to explain what we're really building here, that direct democracy, or democracy serves you and you have input in it. And big money, big tech, party elite people do not get in the way of that system.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah, I think this was actually a really good way to frame a lot of what we're doing. And again, that's what people are used to. It's anything from ordering the groceries, Uber, Airbnb, the shared economy. Like, I mean, it's again, it's crazy. You go like be purchasing a vacuum cleaner and see like people like this, the suction is really well, but the nozzle broke easily and blah blah. So like, not only are you just getting like a 1 to 5 star rating, you're seeing what people like and dislike about it. And now there's the aggregation, almost like a consensus aggregation now, where like at least with Amazon, where it'll read all the reviews and then summarize it. That most people are complaining about the battery, but they really love that it does this. And so like, imagine our candidates are like that. Like, people like that the guy is very energetic and he speaks very clearly, but when it comes down, comes to shove, he's not voting in the way that we asked him to vote. Like, oh my God, that would be, that'd be so amazing. So that's what we're talking about here. And like, and so it's, and is another thing. I was talking, I guess it wasn't a podcast, I was talking to different people in VoteNevada this week, and one of the conversations was like, they say there's an age gap, and like, yeah, like younger people are it's easier for us to integrate technology, but who doesn't have a smartphone or at least an iPad? Like, my grandmother, she passed 3 years ago, but like she was 97 at the time, and like she had an iPhone, and she only knew how to use what she wanted to use it for, but she could do a little bit of shopping, she could do a little bit of Googling, she mostly played games and stuff. But so most people in this country are would know how to handle this kind of stuff. And it's like, so there's not a gap, there's enough like people are savvy enough that they'll find a way to plug themselves into this democracy, because that's really the key. We want to make it accessible so every American can plug into democracy, every American can participate, and you don't have to participate hours and hours and hours. We're talking about like couple like right now to move the needle forwards, like 5 minutes once or twice a week. And then like when in terms of voting, like a half hour, an hour to fill out a survey, and it helps match you to the right candidates. And that's minimal of an hour per election. And then a lot of people do more in-depth research and whatnot, but just plugging everyone in so it's less of an effort, more of an impact, but then also that we, the citizens, we the people, are in control of how the future of elections work. It should not, like, if you really think about it, it's absolutely insane that those already in power decide how the rules work in the future. So like, should ranked choice voting exist? Well, those in power are the ones that are deciding. It does not matter whether you want it. It doesn't matter if the majority of Americans want it. Those already in power don't want it, so it's not going to be brought up. That term limits, money out of politics, like a lot of things that like 85% of America wants, does not even get remotely discussed because they're already in power. They're not going to, we say this almost too much now, but a wolf will not lock their own cage. You're not going to get them to put a reform that, chops one of their legs off. They're not going to do it for us. They should have that altruistic desire and objectively want to do what's right for us, but that's not reality of today. I would hope if we elected the right people, some people would have that genuineness inside them. I know I do, but I know I'm rare that I can like try to make objective decisions for the greater good. And a lot of times, none of us are perfect, but either way, whether they're doing it altruistically or not, now with this new system, we actually can hold them accountable. So whether they might want to make a selfish decision, but if they know, if I vote the wrong way, now it's so easy to know on digital democracy that I didn't fulfill my promise. I'm not going to get reelected if I vote no on this bill that my district, they very specifically told me that this is the bill that they're electing me for. And I know that if I go against them, even though my big donors are going to give me like tens of thousands of dollars to go the other way, I at the end of the day, if my voters really can put their foot down and not and sway an election out of my favor, then no amount of big donor money is going to get me elected. If the voters are going to put their foot down and they're going to make sure I don't get elected, it doesn't matter how much money I have to advertise and campaign, the other guy's going to win.
Yeah, and for my kind of final thought on that, it's not that, we can't tomorrow make big money in politics illegal, right? All these things take time and legislation and cooperation. But what we can do today is say there no longer should be a reward system for big money, big tech, party elites. The reward system should be, are you doing what your candidate or
Constituents,
your base wants? Are you fulfilling the promises that got you elected? Are you actually talking to the people who, lives you're affecting by the decision you make? So a lot of what we're talking about is you can't change, the structure immediately, but we're changing a reward system of what if that dirty politician still, has those $10,000 a plate events. Well, gosh, it's no longer in their favor because now there's an opportunity to call it out and vote differently. And there's that opportunity to actually do something with that. I hate that my politician does that. Let me, whatever, spread the message, spread the word that they're doing this grimy thing and no longer reward them with almost, I don't say complacency because voters aren't complacent, but without a tool in their hand to do something about their irritation.
Yeah, 100%. And also to be clear for those that are listening, yes, the legislation is going to take quite a while, but that's the key. Is all our plans are not about legislation at all. The end, decade or two from now, yeah. But like Liz just said, it's the reward system. If we can incentivize actually representing the people, is going to reward you. We build a system where a candidate has visibility without raising millions of dollars, without being in bed with the establishment and special interests. Those are things that completely can change the entire system upside down, or right side up, without any legislative change. So, the change has to come first from the outside, change the system from the outside, elect better candidates. So, we've been trying this game for decades. There's been people for decades trying to get money out of politics and ranked choice voting and stuff like that. And it's not, we're not any closer. In some ways we're further back in certain states and whatnot. But building a new system that helps reinforce all these efforts, now you're changing the patterns. You're changing the strategy. The strategy that's been being attempted for decades isn't working. If you change the system, you change how people choose their candidates in a better way that they want and that they agree with, everything changes thereafter and everything starts falling into place. And again, all the efforts that are going, we're not saying don't do it. We're just saying once you change the system, all those efforts will then, have a lot more depth and holding people accountable to these promises, and better coordination between these different reforms and what the citizens want.
Yeah, and I guess I have a second final thought. The system and infrastructure we're building isn't meant to usurp and throw every reform effort off the table and say you had your chance, let FiNC take over. We are all about amplifying and lifting up the good quality efforts already in motion, but that are being blocked by these rigged patterns of money and party gatekeeping. So we are amplifying and not usurping the system, and I think people are really ready for something to change, something to shift.
Yeah, like we say, we're looking. We're not trying to usurp those solutions. We're trying to plug them in. We're building shared infrastructure that all these other solutions can plug into, and then we can amplify them. So again, we're not here to replace the new ideas, replace the better candidates. We're here to reinforce and amplify them by building a better system that gives them a better chance to succeed and take shape and overcome the biases of the broken system. Cool. So so that's the show for today. If any of it resonated, here's how you can plug in. First, follow the show on whatever platform you're watching. We're doing it on TikTok, YouTube, and Facebook. That's the easiest way to stay in the loop. Next, join our digital politics hub. Just launched this month. It's at hub.futureis.org. Add your name to become a citizen architect. There'll be a little survey asking what your priorities are, what you care about politically. And then it also helps you it makes you be a future owner of what we're building together in the long term for digital democracy. And then third, share this with somebody who's fed up with the system or anyone else that you feel might be interested in what we're doing. That's a key way that this is going to grow. Remember, we're not building this for you. We're building it with you. We need you to be part of it. We want to build the people power and just massive buy-in and demand for this before we build it all out. That way we could do this together with your feedback in mind, building the trust, earning your trust, and then and incorporating what your ideas are in as we grow. So thanks for plugging in. We'll see you next time.